Welcome back to another Friday Bible study. Like I said before, this is one of my favorite types of videos to do at the end of the week. Every Friday, we try to do at least one Friday Bible study, and I'm so excited to bring to you today some content here that I think is really going to be beneficial to you. I've said before, and I'll say it again, even if you're someone that doesn't necessarily believe or follow or consider yourself a believer in Christ, but you don't even really read the Bible, whatever, I still think there is wisdom and knowledge to be gleaned from the Scripture, and I think it's beneficial for everyone, no matter where you find yourself on that spectrum. I find it to be very, very insightful and beneficial, even for folks that don't necessarily agree with that. And so I was looking for videos and articles and things I could point to and read to and kind of try to talk about this. And really, I think it would just be more beneficial to jump right into it, because I think this is going to be a really good scripture, and I thought we should just get right into it and have and get from it what we can. So today I'm going to read from Proverbs 7, and really is talking about a warning against the adulteress. And really the interesting thing about it is the wisdom that you can glean from it as it comes to temptation and agendas and things that someone will come across. And so I'm going to pick up right in verse 4 and go from there. So Proverbs 7:4 says, "Say to wisdom, you are my sister, and call insight your intimate friend, to keep you from the forbidden woman, from the adulteress with her smooth words. For at the window of my house I've looked out through my lattice, and I have seen among the simple, I have perceived among the youths, a young man lacking sense, passing along the street near her corner, taking the road to her house, in the twilight, in the evening, at the time of night and darkness, and behold, the woman meets him, dressed as a prostitute, wily of heart. She is loud and wayward. Her feet do not stay at home. Now in the street, now in the market, and at every corner she lies in wait. She seizes him and kisses him, and with bold face she says to him, I had to offer sacrifices, and today I have paid my vows. So now I have come out to meet you, to seek you eagerly, and I have found you. I have spread my couch with coverings, colored linens from the Egyptian linen. I have perfumed my bed with myrrh, aloes, and cinnamon. Come, let us take our fill of love till morning. Let us delight ourselves with love. For my husband is not at home. He has gone on a long journey. He took a bag of money with him. At full moon he will come home." And I'll end it right there, verse 20. Jumping into this, it's very clearly talking about being wary of the woman, of the adulteress, but there's very, very specific little hints and clues that the author within this chapter was warning about. And you can really glean any sort of temptation from this. But right off the bat in the beginning, it talks about saying to wisdom, you are my sister, holding wisdom as a family member, calling insight your intimate friend. And your intimate friend, to be intimate with insight is to be intimate with insightful knowledge and seeing things and being able to seeking after insight and trying to look things in detail, getting into the weeds and trying to figure out what's really going on here. Call that desire your intimate friend, to keep you from the forbidden woman, or from the adulteress, in other words, with her smooth words. And you could really, at surface level, take this as a warning to men about women with malintent towards them, with a desire to lead them down a path of destruction. But really, you can take this as a warning against any type of thing that would tempt you off of your position. So often we see leaders, both in church and in business, that get tempted and pulled away from things that would destroy them, that seem attractive on the outside, and whether they have a justification for it or not, they get pulled into something that doesn't turn out to be good for them at all. And in this personification of the person speaking these words, they talk about how at their house they look out through their window, and they've seen among the simple-minded people, the people that do not call insight their intimate friend, the people that do not say to wisdom, you are my sister, the people that do not take it seriously. They've perceived among the youths young men lacking sense, passing along the street near her corner, insinuating that they are going near where this temptation is and taking the road to her house, making a conscious decision to go down to where the temptation is, knowing that where that road leads. And that's talking about how you have an option and you have the ability in your life to take control of where you're going, and you know the roads to take. And that was the first thing wrong with the young man in the story. He intentionally chose to take the road that he knew where that road would lead. And there's an intention here because it says in the twilight, in the evening, at the time of night and darkness. The power that this woman has over him is held in the intention of keeping it secret and keeping it in times of the day where no one's around, there's no accountability, no one can see what you're doing and tell what you're doing. And you take that road away from people. Separation and isolation is the first step into finding destruction. Zero accountability. Zero accountability, zero integrity. Choosing to take the road where you know where that road leads and doing it intentionally where no one can see what you're doing. Those are steps of unhealthiness. Those are steps of stepping into a situation where you will be easily swayed away into destruction. And then it says, and behold, the woman meets him, dressed as a prostitute, wily of heart. This, you cannot look at these verses and only take it as a slap against any kind of woman with that would have malintent towards someone or use herself in order to tempt someone away. This is not what this is just talking about. If you look at it from that surface level, you are not gleaming wisdom from what this is actually warning. What this is talking about is someone or something that personifies itself and presents itself in a certain way, but then from its lips or from how it communicates, it's saying something different. Because in verse 10 it says, and behold, the woman meets him dressed as a prostitute. But then it says in verse 14, I had to offer sacrifices, and today I have paid my vows. What this person is saying in that, which you need to understand, is in the Old Testament how they would offer sacrifices to become sanctified, to stand with God and have relationship with God. This person is speaking and presenting herself as something good, as someone who is at oneness with holiness, at oneness with goodness, that has relationship with something powerful in a good way. Not just good for you, not just beneficial, but actually like honesty and goodness and purity. However, the dressing is an intentional decision to intentionally present and dress yourself in a way that is enticing and presents in a certain characteristic or a certain agenda hidden behind the words. What this is saying is that someone who is insightful, someone that is intentional, someone who calls insight your intimate friend will see this and notice this and say, just behind the words, it's not just good enough to see the words, but you're actually seeing insight. You're having insight into the intention of the person by the way that they present themselves. Basically saying, if you're looking and you're insightful and you're being intentional and you have wisdom, you will see that there is something more going on here. This is a person who is intentional of how they present themselves in order to entice, but projects and personifies themselves as something pure and innocent. But there's no way. If she is presenting in verse 14 and says, I've offered sacrifices today, I've paid my vows today, I have done what was right in the eyes of the Lord, I am presenting myself as pure and innocent. However, there are signs of something deeper, and is dressing themselves as one way. You are dealing with someone who is a deceiver. You are dealing with someone who gives you signs. If there is malintent in someone's heart, if there's something wicked, if they desire to do something against you, whether they're a believer or not, if someone has bad intentions for you and is coming after you, the signs will be there. Where there's smoke, there's fire is what this thing is teaching. If you're seeing signs of something going on, do not ignore those signs. So many times in my personal life, I have not paid attention to the red flags. I've not paid attention to the signs that I knew were attached to something else. And I told myself a story because I would say, well, no, that person's a nice person. There's no way this could be happening. There's no way that this person could have devious motives behind what they're doing. And every single time it played out exactly like we originally saw it. It played out exactly like that they had malintent. And that's what we can glean from this, that there are signs to this. And if you're paying attention, verse 10, she's dressed as a prostitute. She is intentionally clothing herself in a way that entices the young man, that pulls them in, that presents a a agenda behind how they speak and what they say and how they present themselves. It is a contradiction. It's a dichotomy between two things. And someone who calls insight your intimate friend, someone who is paying attention, will clearly see that there's something more going on here. There's something devious behind this. The deceiver, the person that intends destruction for you, cannot help but to present themselves in a way where you will see signs of what's really going on behind the scenes. It'll be little things. And I think it's because normally you can only put on a cloud of deception for so long before your true intention bleeds out in various areas. They'll snap back at you in certain ways. Like they'll tell, I had one leader that I worked with and that presented themselves to say, hey, we're equals. I was more in operations. They were more in the vision department as far as the executive leadership, and they would say, we're equals. I consider us equals. We're gonna work together. I'm not over you. I need you to help me to be accountable. And then when I would go in to engage in that in a nice way, I was very respectful. I wasn't trying to be mean, but unfortunately, when you're holding someone accountable, when you engage in that role, there really is no way to do it that doesn't sting a little bit. But every time I did, they would point their finger at me and they would flip out and they'd say, I'm your boss. You need to just listen to me. And so you can see these little signs of where their heart actually is, that the things they say from their lips don't always mean exactly what they're presenting them to be. And this is what this is saying, that there is a sign with this woman in the story that shows that she's saying one thing, but ultimately behind that, there's something more going on. There's an intentional clothing that is warning against intention. There's an intentional thing going on here that's not presenting itself fully, but there's signs to that. And this is where I really wanted to focus in on this, because this is where I was like, I wasn't going to just do this today. I was going to let this go because I couldn't think of anything. I'm like, I'll put it off till next Friday. But I'm like, you know what? No, this piece of it is important. And this is what we need to focus on. Like, you will see the signs of it. And then we pick up at verse 21. With much seductive speech, she persuades him. With her smooth talk, she compels him. All at once he follows her, as an ox goes to the slaughter, or a stag is caught fast, till an arrow pierces its liver, as a bird rushes into a snare. He does not know that it will cost him his life. Now, O sons, listen to me, and be attentive to the words of my mouth. Let not your heart turn aside to her ways. Do not stray into her paths. For many a victim she has laid low, and all her slain are a mighty throng. Her house is the way to Sheol, going down to the chambers of death. Do not stray into her paths. Do not allow yourself to go down that road. This is turning back and pointing you back up to the top here. That last verse is pointing you back to this verse where it says that I've seen them going down in the night. It says, taking the road to her house, in the twilight, in the evening, at the time of night and darkness. It's warning one last time before the verse ends. It's the warning in verse 9. At the very end of verse 25, where it says, let not your heart turn aside to her ways, do not stray into her paths, is a reminder to the reader of verse 9, in how verse 8 and 9, where it's saying, taking the road to her house in the twilight, in the evening, and at the time of night and darkness. Do not deceive yourself. Do not deceive yourself into thinking that there is safety in isolation. That you going down that path, you walking down that path intentionally, and no one around you seeing it, means you got away with it. Because you're subjecting yourself to something much worse. Emotionally, mentally, spiritually, you are subjecting yourself to something much, much worse. There's been many studies done about how yielding into temptation, and no matter what kind of temptation it is, yielding into something that is destructive behavior, such as adultery or infidelity, whatever you want to call it, something that is self-gratification, yielding into that is ultimately destructive to yourself, not only affects you, depending on what it is, it could affect you physically, whether it's, drugs or overeating or whatever, but it also affects you mentally. It destroys you mentally. It has mental effects, traumatic effects, not just to the people that you're hurting around you in the case of someone who's practicing infidelity, but also to the person themselves going through it. It has a mental scarring that takes place. This has been proven over time, and it's really caused silence to people who thought that there was nothing wrong, and you engage in that practice of, oh, you think, you just should let people do whatever they want to do. What does it matter to you? And it's like, hey, I'm not sitting here trying to tell you how to live, but this is a warning showing you that the choices you're making have repercussions, whether you like it or not. You can sit there and pretend all day that it doesn't, but it will. And this is what it's warning. Taking the road to her house, being intentional in going down the path towards whatever that temptation is, and doing it in times where you know that you're alone and you know that no one's around. Twilight, evening, at the time of darkness, that's what that all represents. Separating yourself from any accountability, separating yourself from any subjection to leadership, subjection to authority. Those are ways that you find yourself cut off real fast. I thought that those were some amazing verses. I hope that you got something from it. I really enjoy these. Are like my favorite videos to do at the end of the week. That's a great way to end the week. Have something to think about, have something to chew about, have something to chew on, have something to process as you go into your weekend. I hope you guys do have an amazing weekend. I hope you guys got something from this. Comment below. Let me know what you think about these verses. Let me know what you think about this thought process. What do you think about this? How do you feel about the temptation? Is there something you're struggling in your own life that you need help getting through? Also, please don't forget to like the video. That really helps a lot. We really appreciate that. It helps with the algorithm. It helps get the video out there to more people. And I will catch you guys in the next one.